pledge allegiance to the flag Okay, roll call, please, Beth.
Granquist,
Here.
Langy, Merrill,
Here.
Clausen,
Here.
Murin,
Here.
Jackson, Faust, File.
Okay, would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Your Honor, before we vote on it, I would like to see item 29 and 30 removed from consent agenda.
I'll make the motion with that stipulation.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve consent agenda with items 29 and 30 removed. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Okay, and a motion to approve the full agenda.
And I move approval of full agenda with the addition of item 29 and 30.
Second. Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Okay, moving to special presentations, item number 40 on your agenda. Presentation by the Norfolk Morning and Noon Optimist Clubs recognizing a Norfolk firefighter and Norfolk police officer for their outstanding dedication and service to the community. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Mark Nelson, president of the Norfolk Optimist Club, and I'm here with Mark Clausen, president of the Noon Optimist Club. Our club meets in the morning, and we're both very appreciative of this opportunity to honor two first responders from our city. First, a little bit about who we optimists are. Norfolk is the only outstate city in Nebraska that has two optimist clubs. Between the morning and noon clubs, we have 85 years of bringing out the best in kids, our longtime motto. Although we are a youth service organization, Optimists International has a long history of honoring first responders. Respect for Law is one of the International Association key projects. Sort of odd in that we are a youth service organization, and clearly every other organization project is kid-focused. However, Optimists International's first motto and goal was helping the troubled boy. So teaming with law enforcement and other first responders is a natural for us to promote safe environments and safe, pro-social, positive behavior.
Good evening. Again, I'm Mark Clausen with the Norfolk Noon Club. By providing hope and positive vision, optimists bring out the best in youth, our communities, and ourselves. That is the mission of Optimists International. And one of the 5 purposes of an Optimist Club is to inspire a respect for law. So it's in that spirit that we're here today to recognize a couple of individuals. First off, I'd like to recognize Sergeant James Kelly with the Norfolk Police Division. Sergeant Kelly is a 19-year veteran of the Norfolk Police Division who currently serves as a patrol shift commander. During his career, he has served as a patrol corporal, a patrol officer, and as a Norfolk firefighter. In addition to his regular duties, Sergeant Kelly oversees the division's emergency vehicle operator training program and has been instrumental in improving the quality and diversity of training in this area. He has also been instrumental in reviving the division's color guard and oversees the training of the officers assigned to this unit. Sergeant Kelly was previously a member of the division's tactical response team. Sergeant James Kelly, come forward, please. And our second recipient is Captain John Redding with the Norfolk Fire Department. Captain Redding has been an extremely dedicated member of the Norfolk Fire Department for nearly 40 years. During that time, he has amassed the single largest emergency response totals for any firefighter in the 133-year history of the fire department. John was promoted to the position of rescue coordinator and the rank of lieutenant, then promoted to the position of shift commander in the rank of captain, leading A shift for nearly 2 decades. He has served as an EMS instructor, teaching hundreds and hundreds of EMTs and paramedics throughout Northeast Nebraska and beyond. Those that know John would describe him as a strong, driven, and firm leader with a huge heart who cares deeply for his staff and for the organization. His commitment to the Norfolk Fire and Rescue is undeniable, and his contributions over his exemplary career will be remembered long after he is gone. Captain John Redding. Thank you.
Thank you, and congrats, Captain Redding and Sergeant Kelly, for that recognition. Thank you, Marks, and the Optimist Clubs for your focus and attention on our public safety divisions. Appreciate it. Item number 41, Town Hall meeting to receive comments on the Northeast Nebraska Solid Waste Coalition budget and rates for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2018. Randy, can you kick this off?
Yes, Your Honor. This is a requirement of the interlocal agreement that created the Northeast Nebraska Solid Waste Coalition. Every year we have a town hall meeting in the 3 largest communities, that'd be Norfolk, Fremont, and Columbus, to go over the budget. The Solid Waste Coalition Board met on July 6th and approved this preliminary budget to present at the town hall meetings. And these town hall meetings will be held, and then we will go back to the board again, and they will actually hold their budget hearing and approve the final budget. There is one change I expect to be made in the budget you have in front of you tonight and what they will finally approve, and that's the cost of living adjustment. When the Solid Waste Coalition Board considered this on July 6th, we didn't know what the city of Norfolk's cost of living adjustment was going to be. 3% is what's in this budget. I expect when we finally approve that budget at the next board meeting, it will match what we're anticipating Norfolk's cost of living adjustment will be, or 2.5%. So that will be the one change I expect to be made between this budget and what's adopted by the coalition board at their next meeting. This budget you have in front of you keeps tipping fees unchanged at $24 per ton. It assumes some growth in waste stream, which we have usually assume some small percentage growth in waste stream. So if that does come about, we don't have to go in and do any amendments to the budget or that type of thing. And our waste stream has been growing somewhat. Balance forward increases $882,000 going from $2.3 million approximately last year to about $3.1 million this year. That's just due to normal coalition operations. Use fees increase $134,000 due to that increase in tonnage I mentioned that we budget, and interest income increases $15,900 simply due to increasing the interest rate that we budgeted from 0.3% to 0.6% this year. Personnel cost increased 3.26%, but as I mentioned, that has a 3% COLA. I think the actual COLA will be less. Disposal fees increased $29,469 due to the increase in budgeted tonnage, and there's no capital outlay budgeted in this year. Also included in the agenda packets, the post-closure care fund budget, and there's a transfer from the operating fund each year for the post-closure care cost, and that increased $300, going from $267,200 to $267,500. Total funds available in the post-closure increased 8.1%, going from about $7.1 million last year to $7.7 million this year. In fact, approximately half of that increase is due to interest earnings and half due to current year funding. And this account is where we're accumulating the funds that we'll need to close the landfill and then take care of it 30 years post-closure. That answer any questions?
Questions for Andy? Couple basic questions, Randy. How many communities participate in the coalition? Do you know?
Pardon?
How many communities participate in the coalition?
24, is that right, Beth? Do you remember? Yeah, 24, I believe. There's both cities and counties that are members.
Okay. And the projected lifetime of that landfill,
I think we've got about 24 years left, if I remember right, before we anticipate that being full.
okay, all right.
Randy, could you explain the closure, post-closure?
Yes, we are setting aside money to pay for taking care of that landfill in 24 years, if that's the right number, to close it at that time, put the final cover on it, and then take care of it for 30 years after that. So if this thing was funded exactly right, your investment projections were exactly on spot, you wouldn't expect those annual contributions to change except as your waste stream goes up, because you're trying to cover it based on the amount of waste you put in there. And we've been doing a pretty good job of that. Our annual contributions have stayed fairly constant the last several years. And the EQ allows us to assume a 2% real rate of return on that money. In other words, that we're investing it more than the inflation rate by 2%. Our actual investments is closer to, well, it's over 3% real rate of return that we're earning, but they won't let us use that full 3%. So we'll probably have a little more money in there than we really need, but we should have enough to, ideally, hopefully, to close it and then take care of it for 30 years.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. If not, thank you, Randy.
Yeah.
All right. Moving to public hearings and related action, item number 42. I'll open this public hearing at the request of Greg Parr to consider a hard surfacing waiver at 2505 South 13th Street. And Val, would you give us a little background to open on this, please?
Yes, thank you. This area is I-1 zoned. It's that grouping of industrial south of the river on 13th, kind of between 13th and Meadowman Lake. And it's custom sports, if that helps too. Why they're asking for this is they are building an accessory storage building behind their existing building. And so that kicks in the hard surfacing requirement according to code. We are still working on the hard surfacing code adjustment, but as we said before, we are just looking at that for residential right now. So the code currently says from the whole ingress egress to where they have their parking is required. He is asking for a 5-year waiver. And what he told me is he intends to pave it. He wanted some leeway in case of construction, how much the building cost. And if he's here tonight, he would probably be able to give you some better ideas too.
Okay, thanks, Val. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward should do so now. Val, can you tell us a little bit about the discussion on this at Planning Commission?
Planning Commission did give a 8-0, I think, vote for this because he was intending to eventually pave it. He was asking for a small window for a waiver, not a perpetual waiver. And it's also connected to the drive that is gravel in front, and it's kind of an interesting drive there, frontage road, because part of it is kind of a private road, part of it's county, because not everybody is platted out there.
Comments? If not, Planning Commission report, please, Beth.
On July 18, 2017, the Norfolk Planning Commission reviewed the application for modification of a hard surfacing requirement submitted by Greg Parr. The application submitted following Norfolk City Code 27351 is requested for the property at 2505 South 13th Street. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the hard surfacing waiver on an 8-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and look for a motion to consider resolution number 2017-52, approving the hard surfacing waiver for Greg Parr at 2505 South 13th Street.
I would offer consideration of resolution 2017-52.
Second.
Okay. Val, anything to add on this or not? No? Any questions, comments, council, discussion?
Well, I guess the thing that I like about it, Your Honor, is that he voluntarily is going for the 5-year. He's also planning on it. It is an extremely unique situation down there because it has a frontage passageway. I don't know if I'd call it a road. That's in extreme disrepair, and depending on how that ever develop or finishes on out that way would impact what he does tremendously. So
Okay.
not like he's coming off of a hard surface onto.
Yeah, yeah. Well stated. Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments, questions on this? If not, I'd ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2017-52 is adopted.
Okay, item number 44. Open this public hearing at the request of Country Club Village Association to consider a zoning change from R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District on property addressed as 1300 Country Club Road. And again, Val, would you open discussion on this for us, please?
Yes, thank you. This is a piece of property that Country Club Village owns across the street from their existing townhome multifamily development right now. They are requesting, like it says, R1 to R3 so that they can continue what they have across the road existing in this piece of property. And the comp plan does call for multifamily in this area also.
Very good. It's a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment? Seeing none, Planning Commission report, please, Beth.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 18th, 2017, at the request of Country Club Village Association, Inc., to consider a zoning change from R1 Single Family Residential to R3 Multiple Family Residential on property addressed as 1300 Country Club Road. The Planning Commission approved the request on an 8-0 vote.
Okay, I will close the hearing and move to item number 45, looking for a motion to consider ordinance number 5487, approving a zoning change from R1 to R3 on property addressed as 1300 Country Club Road.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5487 on first reading.
Second. Any questions, discussion, council, on this? Seems pretty straightforward.
Probably a little history on it, Your Honor. I came to town in 1976 and went to work for the developer of this area at that time, or of Country Club Village, and could never quite figure out why that was not zoned R3 over there. Everything around there is R2 or multifamily, and 40 years later, I guess, we're getting around to it, so. Wheels of progress take some time, so.
The wheels of progress grind slowly. It does certainly make consistency there with current zoning, so. Any other questions, comments? If not, please vote. Oh, short titles, sorry, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
And now please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5487 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5487 on second and third reading.
Second?
Okay. If no discussion on that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5487 carries on second and third.
Okay, regular agenda, moving back to items number 29 and 30. I'd look for a motion to consider approval of an agreement with McClowery Engineering Incorporated, effectively replacing the agreement approved on July 17th, 2017 for Stephen Ramus to provide general engineering services to the city of Norfolk, with a new agreement providing for Stephen Ramus of McClowery Engineering to provide engineering services as the interim city engineer. Andy, would you give us a little context on this, please? Oh, sorry.
Your Honor, I would move approval of the agreement.
Second?
Okay, now Andy, please.
Sure. Just a little bit of background on this. With the resignation of John Heine, we now have a vacancy for the city engineer position. Dennis Smith has also entered a resignation as well. So we now have 2 engineering openings for the city of Norfolk. So the original agreement with McClowery's and Mr. Ramus was to provide just general engineering services on an as-needed basis. But I think with the need the city has right now, I think we do need a full-time person in that role. So we have that presence in City Hall during regular business hours. And I think that benefit is both for city staff and I also think for the public as well. And I think that'll be a good benefit for us to have that through the interim period until we get some permanent full-time staff on board. So really this agreement really just solidifies that and makes understood that this is on a full-time basis. As a contracted consulting services, but as an acting full-time basis. So I think that's probably the key thing to make point of is that this will be a full-time presence in City Hall during regular business hours. There has been a small reduction in the rate as well. It was $100 an hour. It's down to 90. So I think it's something certainly it's needed and it's something we can do as well. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Andy?
When you're under not so much a question, but as a further clarification too, because with Mr. Ramus being on board and being on site, that also benefits John, our EIT person, as he'll be able to continue progressing forward under direct supervision that way with the person on site, and he'll be able to continue on forward and eventually, I would hope, acquire his engineering license that way. Whereas if it was not an on-site situation, I do not believe that he would be in that position to be able to continue.
Right, that's an important component of this as well, and as Andy indicated, altering the original agreement to accommodate regular presence of an engineer in City Hall, I think is important and needed. So, are there questions or comments on the agreement before us? Okay. If not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Right, item number 30, I look for a motion to consider resolution number 2017-51, appointing Stephen Ramus as interim city engineer to provide general engineering services for the city of Norfolk until such time as a city engineer is appointed or until Stephen Ramus resigns the position of interim city engineer.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of resolution 2017-51.
Second. Okay. Andy, you want to add anything else to this?
No, I think the need is also there, particularly for some projects we have coming out that are definitely our utility departments and public works folks. There's certainly a need for a city engineer to have that designation for the city of Norfolk. So this also adds that on to Mr. Ramus through the interim period.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments? Again, I think the arrangement, given the need for constant presence within City Hall of an engineer, this makes sense, and Mr. Ramus is seasoned engineer and has worked throughout the country, and we welcome him to City Hall and we look forward to working with him. Any other questions, comments, council? If not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2017-51 is adopted.
Back to the regular agenda, item number 46. For a motion to approve ordinance number 5484, annexing a tract of land generally located south of the Elkhorn River between First Street and 13th Street. Ordinance number 5484 passed on first reading at the July 3rd council meeting and on second reading at the July 17th council meeting. And Andy, would you?
Your
Oh, I'm
Honor,
sorry.
I'd move consideration of ordinance number 5484 on third reading.
Second?
I just reminded no discussion on third reading, so I'd ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Ordinance 5484 carries on third reading.
Moves us to item number 47, for a motion to approve change order number 2 with Houseman Construction for the library renovation and expansion project, resulting in a net increase not to exceed $29,664.51. And look for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Your Honor.
Second.
Okay. And Jessica, you have some background on this, please?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
So tonight we ask for consideration of approval of this change order. You see on the cover sheet of the change order, there's kind of 3 small groups of changes. The first one involves some minor cost increases for steel beam changes in size and accommodating the additional steel weight for that. We added some painting in the new addition. Instead of leaving that exposed structure unpainted, we decided to paint that, so there's an add there. We got a credit for reusing a flagpole, so some kind of back and forth on some small changes there. Number 2 has some electrical changes. We reduced our conduit a lot in some of the places we initially thought we'd need data and power. We just needed power, so there was some back and forth on that too. This is a not to exceed cost there, and you see that about $1,400 cost. We're still working on that one, and per an email this afternoon, we think that cost will really be more like $100. So we're working really hard to try to keep all of these changes as cost neutral as we can as we go through this process. But you can see number 3 there is the significant cost. And that is for the cost of a new transformer to be at the library to cover the new load of the expanded building. This is a cost that should have been included in the base bid, and it was an oversight by the electrical engineer hired by our architects. So this is our correction of that error to include that at this point instead of including it at the original. So certainly not ideal, but something that is needed. In addition to that $26,000 cost, there's a $14,000 cost from NPPD for the transformer itself for a contribution in aid of construction. So while we are working to keep these changes as minimal as possible, we do also have a contingency fund in the library budget and the overall project budget that we can absorb these costs out of that and still keep the project on track and on budget. So that's a quick summary there. I know this attachment was quite lengthy. So be happy, Jim McKenzie is here as well, so be happy either one of us to answer any questions.
Jessica, on your contingency fund, what percentage of this cost is that of the total fund? Do you know?
It should be less than 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I heard you right, Jessica, the 14,000 in kind with Nebraska Public Power is not part of this?
Correct. That is in addition to that. It's an invoice that's part of the,
So my question is MPPD going to bill us as the owner?
yes.
Okay, so that we can stay away from the, the incurred costs or the incurred profit and overhead by the contractor along with the bonding requirements.
Yes, that,
All those additional things that we shouldn't have to be paying for. I'm assuming that the electrical engineers, errors and omissions insurance isn't gonna give us anything on it either,
No, I don't think so.
okay?
Doesn't hurt to ask, though.
It's not gonna happen.
The engineer that overlooked the item, is there any responsibility on his part
Well, I think that's what Councilman Langy is
That's what
referring
he's
to,
talking?
Yeah.
that that's gonna fit in there? Okay.
that-
Well, it certainly appears as though it's, as you're driving by there, there's lots of activity, there's lots of stuff going up, and it looks like lots of progress is being made. Are we ahead of the timetable, behind? I mean, it's been a pretty active construction season.
Yeah, we're right on schedule. We've been lucky. We've had good weather and things, we haven't been delayed that way at all, so we're right on schedule.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah,
It's good to hear.
yes.
Has usage of the library decreased some during the construction, or have you noticed any changes?
Our foot traffic and our checkouts are down a little bit since the construction started, but last month, our foot traffic was higher than the previous year's July, so we're mostly seeing it decrease a little bit, but, we are having some increases as well, so
Good.
it's pretty loud in there some days.
And you maintained all your summer programming that
Yes.
you do typically, right?
Yes, and we did some community partnerships with the Art Center to have those big programs at their facility this year, and since we didn't have room, so.
Sure, great.
A question, so is there still around 300,000 in the contingency budget?
Let me see. Our total contingency we set aside was about 245,000.
Okay, I was just going off the 10%.
Yeah, so it should be, especially if we get that item number 2 down to about $100 instead of the $1,400. We should be at about 28,000, so a little over 10%, I guess.
So what would you consider the phase of the project? What percentage of the project is complete right now?
Don't know that off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
Probably sitting around.
Application for payment.
My thought would be to pay this out of the contingency at this early in the game. And then if we have a major problem towards the end, come back and ask for a increase in what we've already allocated for this project. Since we have, over 200,000, 220,000 left in that contingency. That'd be my first thought. And any thoughts? You guys would be just throwing that out there, so.
To cover this cost out of that contingency fund?
Correct.
Yes,
And not
that-
ask for the increase from, is that what you're asking? You're asking to pay this out of the contingency? Or are you
Yes.
asking for an increase?
Yes, this results in our overall contract. It's a contract change with Hausman because we have to
Okay.
approve the change order, but it does not increase the overall project budget.
Perfect.
We're
It-
still
it's
within that.
taken out of the
It's taken out of
contingency.
contingency.
Yeah.
Okay, I was
Sorry.
thinking it was you were asking for an increase of 29,000.
Yeah, no, we're just asking for the contract amount to be changed.
Okay.
Right. Okay,
Yeah, all right,
Very good.
Thank you.
all right. All right. If no further discussion on that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. Evening.